In today's video, we're painting a 3D printed 1/3 scale Too Faced portrait featuring how to paint skin tones as well as how to ink wash and dry brush.
All right, the first step for Too Faced is going to be to get him primed and ready for paint. For that, I'm going in with my Stynylrez primer, which is basically a light brown skin tone color, which I like to use anytime I'm painting skin tones. So we're just going to base the whole model with that primer to get it prepped and ready for paint. All right, we got the model all primed, and the next step is going to be to get him all painted. All right, and here's how he's looking after the primer. Up next, we're going to go in and start doing highlights. For the highlights, I'm going in with Vallejo's Fairy Flesh set. We're going in with the natural flesh and highlight skin mixed together, roughly 75 to 25%, just to do a subtle round of highlights to start things off, and then we'll go into the shading. All right, and here's how he's looking after the first round of highlights. Hit the bridge of the nose, above the eyebrow, on the cheek, a little bit on the chin, because the monstrous side kind of crosses over that. I started to whiten up the eyes a little bit, so that's how it's looking so far. Next round is going to be to go in and start doing some of the shading. As for the shading, I'm going in with some Burned Flesh. Has no ties to Too Faced, being that his face is burnt. It's just the name of the color. And going to go in and basically hit all of the deeper recessed areas to start doing some of the shading on the face. Okay, so here's how he's looking after the shading. Things are going to look a little harsh at the moment till the very end, because at the very end I'm going to take the first base coat color and lightly mist it over everything just to tie in all the colors, but basically went into all the deeper areas under his cheekbone, the wrinkles across his forehead there, above his eyebrow, under the jawline, down the neck, just to bring out all of those areas. So the next step from here is to seal this off with some clear coat, and then we're going to start doing some washes. Before we start the washes, just wanted to mention off camera, I did forget a spot. I went into the eyes, into the crevices over there, as well as inside of the ears, just to darken up those areas. So now we can move on to the washes. All right, so it's the next day. He's been clear coated, gave him some time to dry. The next step is going to be to move on to the washes to kind of stain his skin. This way it doesn't look so perfect. When you're looking at skin, you know, it has different variations of colors, you know, different reds. You know, you can see the veins through your, you know, underneath the actual first layer of skin. So that's basically what we're going to be doing next. And excuse the mess, I'm actually in the middle of painting other projects at the same time. Actually just finished up the flesh tones for Batman. So that's pretty much what we're going to be doing to Two-Face today. Giving him some realistic looking skin tones. So again, yeah, going back to the washes, we're going to go in with a yellow, a blue, and then a red. So we're going to start off with the yellow wash, move on to a blue wash, and then lastly apply the red wash, which is going to go on a little bit different. So I already have my plastic containers out, because like I said, I was just working on the Batman over here. Little sneak peek at that. So basically, this is just the Vallejo yellow paint, transparent yellow, thinned down with just distilled water. So we're going to get to applying the first wash and continue on with this project. All right, so starting off with the yellow, and it's very important, make sure you clear coat before you start doing washes. This way, if there's a mistake, you can wipe it off. Also, it helps dab the wash off itself, because we're going to be going around. You can either take a piece of small foam or some type of cloth. Just make sure it doesn't leave behind little fibers. This is actually a wet wipe that dried out. All right, so as far as the wash, again, yes, it's just the paint straight out of the bottle mixed with some distilled water, and that is it. We're not using thinner or anything like that. So basically the way this is going to work is we're going to dab it onto his skin, and then we're going to dab it back off. The longer you leave it on, the longer it's going to stain the skin. So just keep that in mind. And I like to kind of basically work up in layers. So less is always more. Put it on very thin at first, and then you can always go back and add more. And this is just going to break up that base skin tone color. This way it's not so perfect looking, because again, like I said, skin has different combinations of colors to it. Okay, just gonna dab that on like so, and then we're going to dab it back off. And you can repeat the process as many times as you need until you get the desired effect, but basically you're just trying to stain the skin, break up some of those colors. So basically what we're doing is we're creating the layer of skin that would be underneath your first layer. If you look at my actual hand, I have, picture, this is your top layer of skin. Underneath the skin, you're going to see different, there's different transparencies. You can see the veins. It's kind of like a, like a bluish green. You have different red areas. So skin's not all just one color. It's all different colors. So that's basically what we're recreating in this process of doing washes. We're at the point where we're trying to recreate what would be underneath the skin. So we're going to go around, do different washes, create different vein work, and then at the end we're going to come back with our first color, the base coat color, and lightly mist it over everything and kind of make it look like this would be underneath the top layer of skin. So that's what we're doing, creating little blood vessels. So that was the first layer of yellow. We can move on to blue. My blue has dried up from the previous project, so I do need to add more. So again, this is just some transparent blue. You can use opaque blue as well, it doesn't really matter. We would just need to thin it down more. So again, we're not using thinner, we're using distilled water to thin it. And basically what that's doing is, if you notice the colors together, the color combination is yellow, blue, and red. So when you mix yellow and blue together, you get a green. And when you mix red and blue together, you get a purple. So it's kind of recreating, like I said, the tones underneath your skin. So you're getting all those, greenish and purplish looking veins that would be under your skin. So that's why it's the color combination of blue, yellow, and red like that. So let's go in with the blue. Again, you don't want to leave it on too long, so we're going to dab this off now. Okay, it's looking good. And then straight, just by using the blue and the yellows mixed together, if you can see kind of the marks that it's creating, kind of looks like little tiny blood vessels. That's kind of the look you're going for. Besides staying in the skin, you're trying to recreate some of the different little blood vessels flowing underneath the skin. So the next step is we're going to move on to the red. The red is going to go on a little bit different. We're going to apply the red with the brush, but then afterwards we're going to use a little spritz bottle here, which contains isopropyl alcohol. When the alcohol hits the acrylic paint, it kind of breaks up the paint and creates this blood vessel effect on its own. So I like to do that last with the red. But it really doesn't matter as far as which colors you start off with. You can pretty much start off in any color combination. I kind of like just to go with the yellow, then with the blue, and then with the red. Because basically, as mentioned, the yellow and the blue is giving you this greenish tint for your your greenish veins, the skin color, and then the red and blue, the two second colors, the red and the blue, are going to create those purplish looking veins. So you get a little bit of combination of green and purples under the skin tone. All right, so same deal with the red. We're going to apply the red and do a combination of both. I'm going to dab it off, but I'm also going to spritz it with the bottle at times. So going in with the red now. And at first I'm just going to dab it off, and then I'm going to come back for the second time and give it a little spritz with the bottle. All right, so I'm going to let that dry for a minute, and then we're going to do a second round of the red and spritz it with the alcohol. All right, going in with the second layer of red. This one's going to get spritzed. So I'm just going to leave it loosely in certain different areas. And when we hit it with the alcohol, that's going to break up into tiny little blood vessels. So you can kind of see what it's doing. Kind of spreads it apart, and then again you can go around and dab it. And don't worry if it's looking crazy. It's supposed to look crazy at the moment because, like I said, the last step is going to be taking the first color, which was the similar to the base coat color, and we're going to mist it back over to cover up most of this. This will all be somewhat hidden under the first, or I should say the last layer of the skin. So I think I'm pretty happy with the way that's looking. Kind of see what that's doing. It's pretty dramatic, but I can cover it up. But you get those little swirl marks that recreate what would look like veins under the skin. So the next step, it depends what type of skin you're going for, comic book or realistic. I like to usually do a combination of both comic and realistic. So the next thing that I like to do with skin tones is a speckling effect. It gives the skin some texture. For that, I come in with a little bit of a darker color than what the base coat is. So if that's my base coat color, I'm going to come in with something a little bit darker, just create a little bit of like freckles, skin pores, moles, beauty marks, whatever you want to call them. It just makes the skin have like a little bit more texture to it. This way it's not so flat and smooth looking. So something a little bit darker than the base coat. And we're going to lower the compressor. This way it's just spritzing out little dots. And that's going to create little tiny dots of textures onto the actual skin. All right, so I have the compressor drop down as far as it can go, basically less than 5 psi. If you have a Mac valve, you could also do this with the Mac valve. I'm currently reviewing this airbrush gun here, so I'm sticking with this one for this project. But yeah, basically this is going to create little tiny dots throughout the skin that will look like texture. So just hitting it from far away. Just wipe this off real quick. Hitting it from far away, it'll create a little bit of like almost what like blood splatter would look like. All right, cover that back up. This is also going to start adding some color to the skin, almost like a bronzer. All right, so I'm going to let that dry and keep coming back and hitting it again with different layers. All right, so that's how he's looking after adding the freckling. You can probably see it a little bit how it's showing up on the camera. It's not going to really show up on his face because it's very subtle, and that's the whole point. You don't want it to be, I mean, you can make it stronger. You can come in with the darker brown if you want to really like come in and create little freckles everywhere to make it look like the person had freckles, but I don't want to do that. I want to keep, he's supposed to be like a, handsome, good looking guy, smooth face for the most part. So I don't want to add too much texture to it, but I just want to give it a little bit more of a realistic skin look to it. All right, so we're going to come back with a similar color to the color we started with and lightly mist it over to tie all of this in. And it's always a back and forth process. If you're not happy with the way it looks, you can redo the washes, you can redo the speckling, redo the shade, redo the highlights. Basically, skin tones are a back and forth process until it looks right. So let's get back on that first color and see how it looks. So this is the color I'm going to come back in with. This is Natural Flesh. It's by the Fairy Flesh line by Vallejo. It's an entire skin set of different colors for skin tones. So let's go back in and lightly mist this over what we just did. And again, you don't want to put this on too strong because we don't want to cover up everything we just did. We just want to lightly cover it up. All right, I'm gonna let that dry and see how it's looking, but so far happy with the results. It's looking pretty good. I've come back and add a little bit more shading, but it's looking good so far. All right, and here's how Too Faced is looking so far. Went back over with the base coat. Also went back in, added back a little more shading. Also touched up on the lips. Hit the highlights just a little bit, so he's looking pretty good. Pretty happy with the skin tones. It's gonna look a little weird right now until we get the hair blocked in, as well as start working on the other side of the face. But as far as the skin tones go, looks really good. Very happy with it. As far as the colors for the lips, same thing I do in all my projects. It's a little bit of a, it's a few layers of glazes, so it's different pinks, different maroons, and different skin colors, like the tans. This way it kind of looks a little bit more natural, and you don't get like that harsh look of him wearing lipstick. I might actually, it's a glaze right now, so it's still a little bit wet, so I'm going to see how it dries. But I might go back in and just add a little bit more of a skin tone, probably with the airbrush gun, just to blend it a little bit more so it's not as red. But yeah, he's looking really cool right now, and going to get this clear coated and protected. And start working on the hair, start blocking in the hair with the base coat, and then the fun part, which will be this side of the face, the monster side of the face. So looking forward to working on that. That's going to be a lot of fun. But yeah, he's looking good. All right, so moving along, the next step is going to be to start base coating the monstrous side of his face. For that, I'm going to go in just by hand. I don't really think I need the airbrush. So the pre-plan is to base coat the face, and then because he has so much texture, you know, different ridges, recessed areas, so many high points, I think a good plan of action would be to do an ink wash and then come back and do some dry brushing. So as of now, I'm going to go in with a darker red. I have this Gory Red by Vallejo. It shows up on camera. There we go. So I have a Gory Red by Vallejo that I'm going to base coat it with, and then, as mentioned, come back. Maybe I'll do like an ink wash and come back and do some dry brushing to bring back some of like the more purplish, pinkish tones in the face. That's similar to what the renders look like. I'm going by what the renders look like since I like the color tones of that. But yeah, we're going to base coat everything by hand with the Gory Red up next. All right, here's how he's looking after the base coat for the monstrous side of his face. I'm not sure yet if I'm going to do an ink wash. I might actually just keep that as the underlying color and then come back, since the render is a little bit more on the purplish side, which I kind of like. I might come back with this, what is it here, Warlord Purple, and just dry brush it over that, so that way this becomes the color of all like the deeper crevices and stuff, and then the darker purple would become more of like the highlight color. But anyway, while this is drying, I'm going to start blocking in the hair. Just get that out of the way. And for that, I'm going in with a charred brown just to base coat it, and then I'll most likely come back with this chocolate brown, also by Vallejo, just to give it a little few subtle highlights with some dry brushing along the hair strands there. And then I think that'll be it for today. I'll let this dry up and then come back the next day, maybe block in the white areas and start doing dry brushing throughout the red side of the face and going in and detailing all that. But yeah, so far looking cool. Really like the way that color's showing up so far. But onto this side of the hair to get this all base coated. All right, so here's how Two-Face is looking currently. I went around and blocked in the brown parts of his hair. I still need to go back and do some dry brushing for the highlights, but in the meantime, we're going to switch on over to the other side of the face, and I'm going to start highlighting the red areas using this Warlord Purple by Game Color by Vallejo. I'm going to keep it, pretty accurate to the renders. On the renders, his face is more of like a purplish color than it is a red. So we'll keep this red for like the undertones, and then the purple I'm going to go around and dry brush to capture all the raised areas, except I'm going to wet my brush a little bit. It's a little bit different technique of dry brushing. Regular dry brushing with just a dry brush goes on a little bit more harsher, not as smooth, to where if you slightly damp the brush and brush it over the highlighted areas, the raised areas of the sculpt, it goes on a little bit smoother. So we're going to do a little bit of something called a wet dry brush, and that'll be up next using that Warlord purple. Okay, so here's how he's looking at the moment. I started going around and blocking in the teeth, that eye, as well as his good eye with some Sky Gray by Vallejo. So we got Sky Gray Model Color by Vallejo. Anytime you're painting eyes and teeth, you don't want to go in with pure white. It just looks too bright. You want to go in with a little bit of a tinted white. So I like to use that Sky Gray. It's kind of like a whitish gray color. I still got to go back in and touch up some of the lines around the gums. As for this eye, I'm going to go in with some decals for the pupil. Before I do that, I am going to give the eye a gloss top coat just to seal the eye, seal the paint. This way it helps the decal slide around a little bit better. So that's just a little trick. Make sure you seal it with some gloss first. This way you can move the decal around, and then afterwards you can seal it again with a gloss top coat. And for the eye, I'm going to go around and start to darken up around the outline of the eye, kind of give it like the illusion that it's a little bit more rounded. Going to give it a little bit of a shadow, and then bring it a little bit more to a white right towards the center. I believe we're sticking to the render to where the eye is just white. There's no pupil on that side, so it'll stay like that. And yeah, so far he's looking pretty cool. So I'm going to seal up that eye, like I said, with the gloss top coat. This one's by Creatix. You can use this in an airbrush gun or just brush it on. I'm just going to brush it on. Give it a little bit to dry, and then we can slide on these decals. These are by, I believe, Archer. It's a famous decal company. They make decals for all types of models. So we're going to go in with that brownish color. See how it looks. This way I don't have to hand paint it. I hate hand painting eyes, but if the decal doesn't look good, I could take it off and always hand paint it. But I'm going to attempt to get a decal in there, because the thing is with the pupil, it's actually recessed a little bit. So I got to see if I can get the decal to kind of lay in there. Done it once before, it came out fine, so shouldn't be an issue. But yeah, that's what we're up to so far. Next step is going to be doing the eyes. I still need to touch up his eyebrow, paint the eyebrow, I should say. Also, another thing I did is, because I added like a little bit of a purplish tint to this side, I did a little bit of a light dry brushing on this side to also add some of that purple around, just around like the cheeks and around, his forehead. Kind of give him like an angry look, like his face is about to turn red. I noticed they did that in the renders, and I like the way that looks. because he was looking a little bit too calm on this side. So this way it kind of looks like he's angry on both sides. Like, he's kind of getting mad and his face is turning red a little bit. So should look a little bit better once the eyebrow gets painted, and we still need to highlight the hair on this side. So it's coming along, and that's how it's looking so far. Up to the next step. All right, so I went around and I did the clear coat. We have the eye clear coated. It's pretty much dry at the moment with the gloss coat. This way we could slide around the decal. I also, in the meantime, went around and did a satin clear coat by brush on this side because I decided I do want to do an ink wash. So we're going to do an ink wash on this side. He's looking a little bit more shiny than I would like. I'm going to definitely knock that down a little bit towards the end. The ink will also knock it down a little bit as far as the sheen goes. But for the ink wash, I'm going in with some red. It's a deep red and some black. This way we get a little bit of like a dark maroon color. These are inks by Amsterdam. And yeah, we're going to mix up like a maroon color, like a dark red. Go in and drop the ink around the side of the face and get into all the crevices, just to darken that up a little bit. This way it has a little bit more contrast. All right, and here's how he's looking after the ink wash. It's still drying, so it's going to fade out a little bit. But yeah, he's looking really cool. I wanted to give it a little bit more depth and add a little bit of black in certain areas just to shade it and also make it look like it's kind of like burnt skin in certain spots. So it kind of alternates between red, a little bit of black, and purple. So that's looking cool. Still a work in progress. I'm playing around with it. Probably looks a little bit more red on camera than it does in person. But the Harvey Dent side, the eyeball on this side, should be dry. So we're going to move on to doing the decal next. So now if you do not have decal solution, which basically allows the decal to bend around shapes, it makes it a little bit more pliable. There is a homemade solution. It's not as good as buying the decal solution, the stuff that's made for decals, but you can take some white vinegar and mix it with distilled water, just a little bit of vinegar. And the vinegar helps in the same way that the stuff they sell in the stores does with the decals. It helps allow you to bend the decal a little bit. It makes it a little bit more pliable. So I've been using that. I've never had an issue with it. So that's what we're going to be doing next. Mixing up some vinegar with the distilled water, and we're going to apply it to his eyeball. I have his eyeball right here. I like to use an X-Acto blade to position it into place. You could try to use tweezers as well. I find tweezers kind of get in the way a little bit. As to where the X-Acto blade, I just slide it right off. I don't know if I'll be able to capture all of that on camera because I kind of need to get in there and see what I'm doing. But once the eyeball is soaked in the solution, you can slide it off from the transfer, the transfer paper. I'm just going to put it right over his eye, slide it right over his eyeball, and then position it into place. So again, I don't know if I can do that on camera because I got to get up close, but I'll show you what it looks like afterwards. And we're just going to dump the decal into the solution like that and let it sit for about 20 seconds, and then we can take it off the paper. Okay, and as mentioned, so basically the decal was applied to the eye. I tried to film as much as possible, but I really need to get up close and pay attention when I'm doing that, and the camera gets in the way. But I took my X-Acto blade with the decal on the tip of the X-Acto blade, positioned it right under his eye, and then slid it off of the X-Acto blade using my paintbrush, which came with the paintbrush, and pulled it off of the paper onto the eyeball. And then you can use your paintbrush to go around and smooth it out over, the curves of the eyeball and get it into place. You have plenty of time. If you keep it wet, it doesn't dry up on you right away. So it's actually still drying now. I could still move it if I wanted it to, but it's in a pretty good spot. So now the decal at the moment is larger than the actual eyeball, because when you have an eyeball, you're not going to see the full pupil unless the eyeball is open really wide, like, this side. He has his eyelids covering half of the eyeball. So once the decal fully dries, I will go back in with a brand new tip on the X-Acto blade, and I will cut around where the eyeball is covering over the eyelid. I'll go around and cut off the excess decal that's kind of overhanging onto the eyelid right now. This way it looks like the eyeball is under the eyelid the way it should be. So can't do that until it fully dries, which can take anywhere from a half hour up to an hour. So I usually give it a good half hour. You got to make sure you use a brand new X-Acto blade tip when you're cutting decals. It makes it very smooth to make nice cuts. This way you're not pulling on the actual decal. And then once it's, once the excessive material is removed, I can seal it into place with the clear coat. But in the meantime, I'm going to start painting his eyebrow while the decal is drying. All right, and here's a final look at Two-Face.
Thanks for watching. If you'd like to see more videos like this, please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.